this computer. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to kick off our series of Making Black America, Black Visionaries in and around the Baltimore City area. We are excited and delighted to be joined by President Freeman Hrawbowski III. He served as president of UMBC, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, my alma mater, since 1992. He was named in 2012 by President Obama to chair the President's Advisory Commission on Educational Excellence for African Americans. His 2013 TED Talk highlights the 4 pillars of college success in science. In 2020, he was awarded the UCSF Medal, the university's highest honor. He is the co-author of the books Beating the Odds, Raising Academically Successful African-American Males. That was published in 1998. I used that in raising my sons. Overcoming the Odds, Raising Academically Successful African-American Young Women, published in 2001. Holding Fast to Dreams, Empowering Youth from the Civil Rights Crusade to STEM, 2015. And the Empowered University, Shared Leadership, Culture, Change, and Academic Success, 2019. He is retiring from being president, but he is not retiring in his work to help raise the bar for African Americans in education. So we are delighted that you could carve out some time to speak with us, President Hrawbowski.
Delighted to be here, Dr. Kaye, and very proud of you.
Thank you, sir. So there's so many young people that are choosing to go down the wrong path, moving away from the pursuit of education and knowledge, which I think we can both agree is not just about going to college. It's the active pursuit of wanting to get answers to questions that you may hold, whether they are involved in any type of crime or figuring out that they don't have direction. How do we get our young people to dream about the possibilities and help them to fulfill them?
I think it's very important that we ask the question first. And number 2, that we think about things that we're doing all the way back to pre-K school. What I love about UMBC, with this new president, by the way, Dr. Valerie Shears-Ashby, is that the institution is focused on the pre-K through 12 and beyond. And you said it well. We need to have different pathways for children, but most important, we need to be giving them the support they need well before kindergarten, that sense of self, building strong academic skills, the ability to think. And I'm convinced we need as many intervention strategies, meaning having people working with families to give them support as they work to raise their children. And it does take a village to raise a child. It needs all of us involved in that activity. Very important.
There was something I read once, President Hrawbowski, where Loyola Ignatius said, you give me a child until the age of 7, and I'll show you the person that they're going to be. Like that K3, K4, K5. Can you talk about, just following up on your point, why is it important that we start so early training our children and just how to dream and how to work toward their dream?
Sure. First of all, the neuroscientists will tell us all the time that that brain is developing in those first few years. We start there and we develop the child's ability to think in those early years, starting from birth. We are working to get the child to encourage the child's curiosity, to get them to ask good questions. But then we're beginning to teach them everything from how to read, how to enjoy language itself, how to work with others in solving problems. And it's never too young to start all of that. That's what we sometimes don't realize. Children can learn more quickly than we think, and they can absorb. This is why we always hear people saying children can learn languages. It's not just language, but languages is a part of it. You know, I would be convinced more than ever, as I have looked around the world, that what I've seen is that some societies have children working on math problems, word problems at ages 4 and 5, you know, and it's possible. It's very possible. And so by the time the child is 7, we are hoping that that child has learned how to think, how to begin reading, how to have a sense of self, and how to navigate the world. Not that it's over, but you set that foundation in those early years. Very important.
I'm glad you said that because in terms of helping our children to dream, one of the most controversial shows we had at Today with Dr. Kaye is when I told parents, I said, you can't just tell a child you can be whatever you want to be. I said, because your child's
Yeah.
pathway to being whatever they want to be is distinctly tied to your ability to help them to reach the next level. You can't say, baby, you can be whatever you want to be. I want to be an astronaut. Well, I can't help you. No
Yeah.
math and science courses. That as parents, we have
Sure.
to be committed to making sure that the dream has a plan, or it just really is a wish at that point.
Sure. And what
With that.
it's a great question and great point. And what I will tell you is we've got so many examples of parents who didn't know math, for example, but who knew how to show interest in the child's ability and to work with the teacher. It's very important for the adults in a child's life to be on the same page. Very important. The worst thing a parent can do is talk negatively about that teacher, because that child will play one against the other. And if there is a challenge in the school, it's not to say the parent shouldn't go in and speak truth to power, but it is to make sure that eventually the parents and the teacher are on the same page on what that child needs. And so when the child says, I can't solve this math problem, then there are things the child can do. You can say to the parent can say to the child, write down what you don't understand. Now I want you to ask the teacher about it tomorrow. And tomorrow night, I want you to show me. Show me what the teacher said. So it's the showing of interest that's important in whether about reading skills or math skills or any of those. But your point is well taken. It takes that parental involvement and the involvement of other adults. I have seen homes where it's the grandmother who makes the difference, that the grandmother is raising the children, but she's got that sense of saying, boy, you're going to get this done. Or know what happened in that school. Very important. My earlier books talked about just that, the involvement of the parents and others who can help the parents with the child. Very important.
Can you speak to about why it's important to help our children learn how to make choices? Like they're overwhelmed with so many options, but they get paralyzed sometimes.
Right. And this is why it's important to have conversations with the child, not just do this, do that, but to get the child to think it through. I have seen mothers and sometimes fathers having the child work with them on paying bills. Or, okay, we've got these bills. They cost this amount. This is the amount of money we have. How do we divide this money up? Make it into a math problem, or decisions about going to the grocery store and looking at how you add up to see how much money you have compared to how much money it takes to buy certain things. The more the parents show the child that she can think and help with decision making, the more seriously and carefully the child begins to think carefully about those decisions. Very important.
And that leads us into trying to talk about how we can help our children when it comes to making college choices. So
yes.
I know there are different pathways. I want to start with college and then we'll talk about career. Sure. I don't think it's a college I think it's a college plan, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things we did with our sons, with using the books that you laid out, is having them talk about putting skin in the game. If you want to go to this university, what is the commitment level? It's not just about borrowing a whole bunch of money. No.
Right.
How much can you put into the game so that the rate of return and rate of investment is part of what you have done? Can you talk about that?
So, I think about every program in the Baltimore area, from College Bound, that has counselors working with students, to the upward bound programs at certain universities. I know UMBC has one and others do too, to get families and children understanding what it takes to be able to be admitted to the college. And I'm telling you, those grades and learning how to read well and think clearly and working on the math will be very important. And being in school every day, another one that's very important. And then most important, it's getting a chance to talk to people who've had the experience. One of the pieces of advice I always give families, find some people from your street or from your neighborhood who've gone to college, young people, and let them talk to your 12-year-old about what it took for them to get into college and then to succeed in college. We need stories of success. We always hear the bad stories. Bad news travels fast, but we need to take the good news stories when a child, a young person has gone on to college from the neighborhood, and to see what's happened. One great example of my students from Baltimore City, Alicia Wilson, who's now vice president at Hopkins, who went to Mervo. She's a great example of talking to kids about what's possible. Kimberly Ellison Taylor was valedictorian from Carver in the city, and now she has her own company. She's a CPA and an MBA. She comes back to talk about why she learned math and accounting, because she wanted money, and to see the kids' faces, she said, I wanted to have money, so I needed to know how to count that money, So having these great examples of young people who've gone through and made it and coming back to the communities can be very important in saying, this is what it took for me to get into college. This is what it took for me to make it through college.
Now, there was a quote that you said to my son, and this is 4 years ago. I know you speak to children all the time.
Right.
I know when we were making the college decision, we bought Kofi to you. Like, you got to go in to Dr. Hrawbowski. But he often reminds me of something you said in that meeting when you said, older the man's reach should exceed his grasp, from Robert.
Yes.
And so as he's making choices in college, he said, I want to make sure that what I'm reaching for exceeds my grasp. I have to keep reaching. Can you talk about training children and how to have the reach exceed the grasp?
Sure, I love that. And that's Robert Browning. And that's why it's not just math and science that are important. English and literature and history and the humanities are important. And the point that Browning is making is that you want to always set your sights high. You want to achieve more than you can immediately grasp is the point. Because if all you can do is strive to get where you already are, you start going the other way. It takes stretching for that which seems unreachable to grow and to be able to go further than you ever thought possible. And that's why it's the idea that a man or woman's reach, that means the goal should be higher than where you can go right now. So you continue to grow and develop and aspire to the next level. It's very important that we keep pushing. And this is what those colleagues of mine at UMBC and the new president, Dr. Valerie, she has asked me, I can't mention her name a lot. You got to interview her, polymer chemist from North Carolina, fabulous. But what faculty there and students do together is they're pushing to be better. We say there that success is never final. As soon as you think you have arrived, you start going the other way. So for everybody, regardless of age or level, we need to know we can be better. That's the idea. We can always be better. And it's with that attitude that you continue to improve. But when people become comfortable and satisfied, they don't just stay where they are. They move back the other way. They start going down. Things never remain the same. A flower or a human being. We're either growing and developing or we're beginning to go the other way. Very important.
No, I like what you said. That I'm thinking about how you push your boundaries.
Yes.
I with a study with the shark that based upon the box it's in determines how long it's going to grow. The smaller the space, the smaller the shark. If you increase the space, the shark increases for the space. Can you talk about how we have to make sure that we are in environments or around people that are larger than where we are now, so we can reach for that?
Yeah, and you won't be surprised to say that even though I've retired from UMBC, that is always my example. And I always remember telling students, calling them doctor this or doctor that, whether they were going into literature or into science or medicine, because I wanted them to think about the possibilities and what it takes to get there. And one of those people that I always enjoyed saying something about being that scientist was Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, because she always said she's going to invent something. She's going to do something different. And it was that notion of never giving up, of believing she could be better than she was, that led her to become the first Black woman to create a vaccine. She led that team with Dr. Bonnie Graham that created the COVID vaccine for Moderna. But when she talks, I was with her and introduced her when she talked to the community on the Eastern Shore of Maryland and for little girls. And what she said to them was, you want to surround yourself with people who believe you can be better.
Yes.
People, you see what I'm saying, who believe you, who are not saying, oh, that's just the way it is. No, we have to believe in our children. And even when they make mistakes, and we all make mistakes, to say, but we fall down and then we get up, and then we get up. That's the idea, because sometimes people can become very hard on children and young people when they've made a mistake. Well, yeah, people pay for their mistakes, but at the same time, we can say, but you are human. And you will make mistakes, and then you get up, you learn from the mistakes, you deal with the consequences, but you keep moving ahead. It's that environment, whether it's in an elementary school or university or in our society, that must tell young people and not so young people we can be better. It's very important. It's attitude that makes the difference, Dr. Kaye. You know, it's so funny. When I retire, people say, well, you can go sit down and just be quiet. No. At every level, I'm busier now than ever around the country. But at every level, we have to tell ourselves we have more to do.
Right.
We have more to grow. I can still grow. I can still learn. I still learn from children and young people and other people. It's that mindset that we talk a lot about that's very important. I'm still learning French every day, you know? And Jack and I are doing Tai Chi together, and we're working with mentees. And so the idea is, how do we help people know it's not time to give up? It's not time to say, well, I've done as much as I can do, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. No. We can keep growing at any age, and we can keep aspiring to be better. And it's that climate, that culture that nurtures that kind of support of people at every level that can lead us to go further than we ever thought possible.
Can you speak a little bit about people who choose the career path? Again, as I said, it's college and
I got it.
Again,
Sure.
Can you talk a bit about that?
You know, I had somebody challenge me 20 years ago, an organization called Jobs for the Future, because they are one of the leaders in this space of post-secondary opportunities, not just about college, but about other opportunities beyond high school. And they said, we're going to give you all our literature. We want you to come and give the keynote address. It was down in Atlanta. And they said, you can say whatever you wanted to. And my doing that soul searching of self and my own attitudes, while looking at what the literature will tell us, said to me, no, college is one path.
Right.
At certain times in people's lives. And at the same time, there are all kinds of other opportunities. And community colleges, first of all, are excellent because they do two things. They can get you ready to go on to a 4-year if you want to, but they can also give you skills and certificates and an AA in areas that will give you a job immediately, you know, and there are all kinds of jobs to talk about. And even in the biotech space, many of those jobs require certificates. But even at UMBC, the company that we have has skills training for people who will work in cyber without getting a degree. Veterans, for example, who come back and they get that certificate and they can get great jobs in that area after a year, 18 months. Now, many of them will someday decide, I want a college degree. Right. You know, the best example, Dr. Kaye, was someone who earned a PhD from UMBC my last year there. His name is Dr. Kruger now, Kruger. He had been a plumber in his young years. He even had a plumbing company. Then he raised his children. Then he went to Catonsville Community College and he got a AA, an AA degree. And then he came over and he got a degree in history. And then he realized he really liked it. Then he got a master's. At age 72, he got his PhD in public policy with a specialty in wastewater management. Now look at the connection between wastewater management and plumbing. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's a great story of how we keep growing and developing and evolving, and people want college at different points. But there are all kinds of opportunities for someone who may not want the liberal arts at first. I am a strong believer in the liberal arts, but it's like T.S. Eliot said, somebody can have the experience and miss the point. Yeah. You know, just to be in class in history or literature and not to take advantage of it is a crime, is a tragedy. It really is. I want people to be there when they can be inspired and take advantage of it. And so people get to that point for many at different points in their lives. I mean, veterans, for example, have had such experience. Sometimes they're really ready for that liberal arts experience to look at the meaning of life itself. Sometimes other people just want a job so they can take care of a family. Right. We have to give people, and that's what happens in other cultures. They give people many more opportunities rather than painting somebody into a box, saying you got to do this at this point.
I want to talk a little bit about juvenile reform, because I want to go back to the point you were making, that you're more than the mistakes that you make.
Yeah.
A lot more than that. I think about something that my dad used to say, and I pass the same lesson on to my sons, but my dad as a pastor used to always say, hey, if you fall on your back, because if you can look up, then you can get up. The goal is keep getting back up. Get up
Yeah.
one more time and you get knocked down.
Yes.
When I look at Baltimore City and I'm thinking about our young people in Baltimore City who've
Yeah.
been led to believe the lie that they are not more than the mistakes they make.
Yeah.
They're not more than the environment in which they come out of. How do we spark the genius a la Carter G. Woodson and set
Yes.
them on fire?
Sure. I think it's by giving them a chance to be around people who can challenge them, inspire them. I love the UMBC Choice Program. We work with first-time offenders. We've got about 500 in that program, and they are still working with those children starting at a young age up through high school, and they give them a chance to come to campus, and they work with them on academics, but they also give them mentoring and support. Children need mentoring and coaching, telling them you can do this. Don't let one mistake define who you are. It's very important. The Department of Juvenile Services gets that, and they're working very hard to do just that, to make sure that we give young people other opportunities to get beyond the mistake. They can do that. And what's critical about that is that we as educators or adults or mentors have to really believe in the child. Mm-hmm. We have to believe that the children can tell when you're sincere. They can tell when you're authentic or whether you're just checking the box. And when you believe in them, and as they say, when you keep it real,
right,
you can connect to them more. And it's not just kids in the city. We got kids of all races who are feeling lost around in the country, and they need adults who will care about them and give them support and believe in them and show them another way. So whether we're talking about our Black children, Latino children, white kids, Asian, Native American, doesn't matter. The fact is that we need more adults who are showing that caring attitude that you're talking about, and who can take it to the next level by giving them the time they need around positive influences to help reshape the direction in which they're moving. Very important.
I'm glad you said that, because that does tie back to how we started.
Yeah.
What does it mean to get people on the path where they need to be? What does it mean to say you can be whatever you want, but I'm committed to helping you be there or helping you get there? I mean, we're in a school year where you're seeing 645 teachers openings here in Baltimore City, but I'm telling parents, even with that reality, you can step in and you can be the bridge for your child over these troubled waters. What parents, how do we get parents excited and set them on fire? Because sometimes parents are dead inside, having been dealt all of the bad hands that they're dealing with every day.
No, it's a great question. I am a strong believer in schools and communities working together. I think it's very important. And whether I know that UMBC works with the consortium of schools around Lakeland Elementary and those. And I know that there are all kinds of activities that involve parents helping with the STEM Center. Northrop Grumman gives funding there. I mean, for example, the Sherman program is working with them there. And the idea is pulling different sectors together. The corporate sector, universities, foundations, the parents, the churches, community groups with the schools. People don't realize how both challenging and rewarding it is to be a teacher in a school. It's both. It's both. I used to say sometimes when people were being so hard on the teachers, I would say, do your children ever get on your nerves at home? And people would look a little guilty. I said, now imagine having 35 of those in that classroom. That's keeping it real. That's keeping it real. So I'm convinced that we need approaches that will connect people in solving problems, in working. And it is, I commend our CEO of Baltimore City and Baltimore County as they are working to get families involved in helping them with the situation, because we do need to find the teachers. We do need to find the teachers, and we need to feel for those teachers. It's very important. It's so easy to sit back outside of schools and criticize. And I'm saying the more involved people become, the less critical they are, because they see how hard the work is. You just think about your own child and then think about dozens and dozens in one classroom. And those children have so much potential. But, my mama used to say about her 8th graders years ago, she taught reading and math, English and math. She would say to the parents when they were saying, this child is becoming a teenager and this child is hard to deal with. She would say the behavior may not always be desirable, but it's normal. Children are challenging. They're human beings.
Human beings.
And the more they get to teenage years, but even before that, yeah, they will challenge us. But we have to keep telling them, you can do this. You know, and the worst thing we can tell a boy is to call a boy bad. He's bad. No, he's active. He's curious. He may be rebellious. And quite frankly, the more curious he is, the more challenging he might be, right? But we have to take that positive approach as we give the child discipline. But we have to help the child know we're in this together, you see. And so I would say the more we can involve parents and grandparents, because grandparents can be very helpful. I've seen that over grandmamas and daddies, you know, they've got that maturity. They've been through it before. And I'm always saying opportunities for parents to talk to parents about the challenges they're facing. Very important as we work to support our teachers. Very, very important.
Now, I had an exciting moment this summer from Dr. Hrawbowski, where I used to always challenge my sons when they went to school. You know what? You've been to school all day. Tell me something I don't know. You know, I know a lot. So tell me something. Look for some information like, oh, this might not be something that mommy knows.
Right.
I had them home this summer. My rising senior, Kofi, my rising sophomore, Amir.
Yeah.
And I had conversations with them. And I said, you know what? This is money well spent. And I don't mean well spent in college. I'm like, I'm going back to first grade.
Sure.
You are seeing the world with a different level of compassion and empathy and care and concern. You're seeing the world less in these silos of race, but you're really thinking deeply about class issues in a way that I didn't know, in a way that my dad didn't.
Yeah.
I think this next generation is going to perhaps be the one to pull us beyond some of these racial issues that we've been mired in, even since you were a child coming through the civil rights movement.
Sure. I think that the two ways I think about our Center for Democracy at UMBC, where the students and faculty are out working with children and people. I mean, these issues of race and gender and LGBTQ and economics, these are issues that cannot be addressed in 3 or 4 sentences, as you know. They are deep. There is a deep divide in our country. There are people who have certain views about people who are different from themselves. And the challenge is, how do we get all of us to open our minds and to look at the other person differently? You know, I think it's very important. You know, Rabi, a Nobel laureate in physics in the 1940s, said that when he was growing up, all of his friends' mothers would ask them at the end of a school day, what'd you learn in school today? He said, not my Jewish mother. He said, my mother would say, Izzy, did you ask a good question today? Did you ask? He said, and the practice of encouraging his curiosity made him the thinker he became. We have to create a culture that has all of us asking good questions. What are the questions we've not asked as we think about all these factors that you just talked about? There's no doubt that we have such misunderstanding across groups in our society. There's no doubt that we are right now questioning the significance of truth. I mean, we've got, how do we help people respect the fact that truth matters, that science matters, that understanding humanities can matter in understanding human behavior. And a part of it is to get away from a society where we're so quick to give responses that the responses don't have the depth of understanding that we need. I mean, gravitas requires time and reflection and deep inward reflection in a way that we need as a society to do right now, and to help our young people understand more than ever.
And then my last question to you, Dr. Hrawbowski, you're at a point now where I think I can say, without offending you, that you have more sunrises behind you than you have in front of you, right?
You're very kind. You're very kind. Yes.
so that, you know, you're starting to take a look back at your life.
Sure.
So if we go 50 years out, you're no longer with us.
Yes.
What do you want people to say about you?
Sure. I appreciate that. Now, I appreciate the diplomatic way you said. Doc, you're old. The two things I would say. I want people to know the quality neoteny, Neoteny. It's from biology, but it means forever young. It means always looking at the world as a child would, with discovery, believing that hope is possible. And therein is what I would hope for my legacy. Jack and I say this all the time, that we want to instill in our mentees and others hope that we can be better. Hope. When people say, oh, things have never been this bad, then they need to study history. They need to study history, whether it's the 1860s or the 1960s, to understand the challenges we were facing, the divisions that we had then. And yet somehow people took action beyond just the protests. I always say, okay, protests can be symbolically important. I marched with Dr. King, all of that's great. But what happens after the protest? That's when the action got. And for me, it's the idea of getting people to vote, to think well, to vote, to think about our values that are important, and to believe my future is inextricably tied to that of others. There's the legacy for any educator. We want the next generation to not only believe in themselves, but to be connected to those who come after them. That's the idea. And for me, it's my students from all the way in the days of my being a carpenter, the last 35 years at UMBC. There's my legacy. People who care deeply about other people, who are working every day, like you, Dr. Kaye, and so many others, to change lives. That must be the legacy for any educator.
President Freeman Hrawbowski served as the president of UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, my alma mater, since 1992. He has retired from that, but he's actively involved in asking new questions and thinking about ways we can move forward. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kaye. Just know I believe in you. Keep doing what you're doing. God bless you.
God bless you as well, folks. I'm Dr. Kaye Whitehead. This has been the Making Black America Black Visionary series for WEAA. Thank you so much for joining us.